All right, so ever heard that one about how a lawyer's salary is basically like punishment for, you know, lying in court?
Haha, yeah, that's a classic.
It's a groaner for sure,
Yeah.
but kind of makes you think about like how people see lawyers, you know? Anyway,
Mm.
you ready to dig into this corporate law stuff? I got those RoleCatcher sources you sent.
Yeah, let's do it. Time to separate the facts from the lawyer jokes, I guess.
Exactly. So this career guide thing they have,
Yeah.
it really lays out what corporate lawyers actually do all day. And it's not like, suits or whatever.
Right, right.
Way less courtroom drama, way more, I don't know, they're like the architects of business deals, making sure everything's legit, legally speaking. We're talking taxes, intellectual property.
Yeah, it's a lot broader than people think. Like, they have to be fluent in everything from, like, contract regulations to trademark stuff, making sure companies aren't going to get sued in, like, global markets and all that.
Oh, yeah, it's only getting more complex, right?
Yeah.
Global marketplace and all that. The guide even mentioned something like a 6% growth rate over the next 10 years for corporate lawyers. That's wild.
That's a lot of lawyers. But yeah, it makes sense. Things are so global now. You need people who can handle the legal side of that whole world. It's interesting. The guide talks about how specialized lawyers are in even higher demand, especially in tech and intellectual property.
Oh, that makes sense. So it's not just knowing the law, but knowing like specific industries too. Okay,
Yeah.
I got to ask though, because I was curious. The guide mentioned high earning potential. Like, come on, is that really true for most corporate lawyers? Or just
It can be. It definitely can be, especially as you get more experience under your belt. The more, I guess, niche your knowledge is, the more valuable you are to the right client, you know? But important to remember the other side of that. Long hours, lots of pressure. It's not all like
Mm-hmm.
champagne and fancy suits.
Right, right. I even got stressed just reading about the workload, I'm not going to lie. This guide does not sugarcoat it. Corporate law is not for someone who, like, wants to clock out at 5 p.m. and forget about work. But then it also talks about the work being intellectually stimulating and,
Yeah.
like, okay, maybe those late nights are a little more palatable if you're really into it.
It's kind of like a puzzle, I guess. You're always having to find creative solutions to problems, but they got to fit within the law, right? And with how fast tech is changing, business models too. It's definitely not your average 9 to 5.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Makes you appreciate the people who are, like, really passionate about it, not just there for the big paycheck, you know?
Hmm.
Speaking of which, they had some interesting points about skills needed to succeed. And I was expecting the usual, right? Like public speaking, being persuasive,
Hmm.
knowing all the legal jargon. But active listening was high on the list.
Yeah.
And reading comprehension kind of threw me for a loop. That's not what you'd expect, right?
I mean, it makes sense, though. Being a good corporate lawyer, it's not just about reciting laws from memory. You're an advisor, a strategist, sometimes even a therapist, kind of.
Yeah.
Got to listen to your clients, understand their needs, you know?
Okay, yeah, I get that. But reading comprehension, it's not like we're talking about like ancient Greek philosophy here. It's
Well, you'd be surprised. Legal documents, man. Dense. Full of jargon. Imagine trying to, like, untangle a contract that's pages long and it's full of these little clauses and weird wording.
Mhm.
You got to be able to not just read it, but understand it, analyze it, like, on the fly.
So it's about like seeing the loopholes and the tricks too, right? Not just what's literally on the page.
Exactly. It's about connecting the legal stuff to how businesses actually work in the real world.
Man, so much for skimming through those contracts. Attention to detail is key, it sounds like.
Oh, 100%. One tiny detail missed could cost a company, like, tons of money. Legal headaches galore.
You're making me rethink my whole life looking at contracts like this.
It's all about the bigger picture, you know, how all the pieces fit together.
Like you need a secret decoder ring just to like figure out what you're even agreeing to.
Totally. And speaking of secrets, right? This RoleCatcher platform, this wasn't in the guide, but they've got this whole other thing going on, and it's kind of mind-blowing.
Dude, I know. It was not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Like they have everything. It's nuts. Interview practice, check. Getting feedback on like your resume and stuff, check. They even have this AI that like analyzes job descriptions and then tells you how well your skills match up. It's like having a cheat code for the job market.
It's really interesting to see how tech is changing the game, you know, because it used to be like you send your resume out and just hope for the best, but RoleCatcher, it kind of flips that whole thing on its head.
Totally.
Yeah.
Especially in something like corporate law, right?
Hmm.
Where it's like super competitive. Everyone wants those same few jobs. It's rough out there.
And it's not even just about finding any job. It's got to be the right job for you,
Yeah.
right? So like their AI thing, it digs into your skills, your experience, all that. And it matches you with companies, but also specific roles, the ones that fit your goals, your, I don't know, your vibe, like having a personal recruiter, but you don't have to pay them thousands of dollars.
No, that's what I call leveling the playing field. So does this mean like no more sending out a zillion applications hoping one sticks?
That's the goal, yeah. RoleCatcher is all about making the whole thing smoother, more efficient. Good for job seekers, good for companies too, because then those companies, they can just focus on candidates they know would be a good fit. And the candidates, they actually have a decent shot at standing out, not just getting lost in the shuffle.
No more wondering if your resume even made it to the right person, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. And this thing they're doing with automation and efficiency, it's not just law, man. We're seeing it everywhere.
Hmm.
It's all about using tech to like fix what's broken in those old systems, make things better for everyone.
Which, if you think about it, goes back to what we were saying about how the legal world's changing, right? It's not enough to just know the law now. You got to know tech. You got to know how to, I don't know, roll with the punches as things get even more digital.
For sure. And the lawyers of the future, they got to be adaptable, comfortable with tech, and this is key, open to learning new stuff all the time. That's what this role catcher thing really highlights for me.
So, okay, let's say someone's listening. They're like, all right, corporate law sounds kind of cool. Based on all this stuff we've been looking at, what advice would you give them? Besides the obvious, like go check out RoleCatcher.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's a good place to start. But I'd also say stay curious, you know? Like really stay up to date on what's happening. And don't be afraid to try new stuff, new tech especially.
Hmm.
Because this field, it never sits still. Being willing to learn and adapt, that's how you succeed no matter what curveballs get thrown your way.
It's almost like they're saying, okay, law school, that was cute. Now here's the real world.
Uh-huh. Yeah, kind of. I mean, you still got to have that foundation, right? Knowing the actual laws, all that. But it's more about always be learning, you know? Because the ground's always shifting under your feet in this field. Role catcher, they get that, which I appreciate.
Yeah, it's like the whole profession is kind of, I don't know, evolving,
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to exist in this like digital world we've got going on.
100%. All these sources, that's the common thread, right? Tech, globalization, even just how people expect things to work now, it's changing what it means to be a lawyer, especially on the corporate side of things.
So last question, big picture time.
Yeah.
Someone's listening, they're into this idea of corporate law.
Mm.
What's the one thing they should take away from all this if they had to boil it down?
Don't just aim for passing the bar exam. Aim for being the kind of lawyer who thrives. In a world where the rules are kind of always being rewritten, you know? Tech is your friend. Stay curious about new legal areas. Never stop learning.
So it's not just knowing the law, it's knowing how to use it in a world that's like already 5 steps ahead of you, constantly.
Exactly. And maybe even more important, it's using what you know to make things a little more fair. For everyone. That's got to be the goal, right?
Love that. And on that note, to everyone listening, what if being good at law isn't about memorizing every rule, but figuring out how to use those rules to make the whole system better? Something to think about.